So hello everyone, it is Toby from Toby's Urban Sketch, and today we're doing another little tips and tricks video. This one is all about planes. What are they? Why are they important? How do they make our sketching easier? So let's start with the first question. What are planes? Well, if we draw a simple 2D shape, we don't have any planes because it's flat. Everything is on one sort of surface level. But as soon as an object has a shape, it's 3D, then it has planes. It has different surfaces facing different ways. So for a cube, we all know how to do this, and we can fairly automatically draw in those planes. And a plane is where a surface is facing a different way. Now, something which can enhance planes is applying appropriate shadows. So if the light, say, is coming from this way going down, these two surfaces will be light. Maybe the top one will be the lightest, and then you also have a shadow here. You can almost think of this flat area as another plane, because it is. It's a table, it's a surface pointing upwards, which enables a shadow to be cast on it. And when we can identify those planes in an urban sketch, for example, where lots of things are squares, we can identify where points of shadow might be. We can identify how to cast shadows elsewhere, and we can identify and make things become 3D, become more realistic. And we can also work out how objects are interacting with each other. So does this chimney go in front or behind the ridgeline? Things like that all become much easier once you've identified planes. Another way, which I like using them, I think this one is more obvious. These are all squares, these are all obvious geometric shapes. But I like using them for natural objects. If we take a fun example, if we draw, let's say we draw a little sort of castle. This is basically a 2D castle, because there's no planes, we're looking at it straight on. You could argue there's a plane here. So why don't we turn these turrets into things on a different plane? They're cylindrical, so we can mark in that they're on a sort of curving plane by giving them those curving cylindrical lines. And this castle happens to be on a nice cliff, as all good castles are, of course. But this cliff, this doesn't tell us anything about the shape, the steepness. Well, no, it tells us something about the shape. We've got the silhouette, but it doesn't tell us about the structure, the size, the volume of this object. So how do we do that? Well, we can find the planes. So we can find where there are cracks running down. We can find where there are cracks at the bottom, and we can use those to show also the perspective of this object. So suddenly if we create a plane which cuts in here and then cuts in there, we've got almost a cave, especially if we then add the appropriate shadowing. So instead of being a flat object, we've now got an object where we've got lots of crevices, lots of caves. We could create another sort of ingoing area here, again just by a simple bit of shadowing and shape. And this is where finding planes in objects where you wouldn't necessarily think about planes is really important. Another example is a lovely way of drawing, say, a tree. And again, you've got this outline, but in reality, when you look at a tree, you tend to have bunches of leaves here, there and everywhere, and each of those leaves or each of those bunches has its own shape. So if we turn them into spheres, each of those leaves tends to have a sort of volume like this. But we don't often draw things like that, especially when we're sketching. We often go for the outlines, but we can draw in these volumes by finding those planes. And so we can find all those planes, and then we can apply the shadow, and we turn this into more of a sort of geometric object, which is certainly a stylistic choice, but it's also really interesting and I think really fun way of finding the shape and the volume of objects, especially in this sort of sketching way. And then when you've got all these planes, again, you can start finding those, which plane has got more light, which is darker, and you can start making an object suddenly become 3D. And we don't have to stick with geometric shapes or living shapes like trees and static objects. Everything has planes. So even if we find a dog, its ear on the background, well, that's going to have a series of planes, and the ear in the foreground as well, if it's flopping over, so it's going to be broken up into two main planes. But then you might even break this down further. Its nose might be a cylinder, or it might have a more complex set of planes, but you can make it as complex or as simple as you like. You often have lovely big ruffles going under. Again, these are all things which can turn into big planes and make your object 3D without having to stress, without having to do it from the very beginning. So you can find the outline, then you can find the 3D by working out within that outline where are all the planes. Anyway, that has been my little video all about the importance of finding planes and how they can help you with your urban sketching.